Hey everyone, my name is Em and thanks so much for watching this episode of Break the Glass. And today we're going to talk about one of the most fun and enjoyable ways of drinking wine, and that is in the form of bubbles. So this episode is going to be all about bubbles. And I'm not talking about, your favorite cartoon character that is made of sugar and spice and everything nice. I'm talking about champagne. Yep, that's right. Today we're going to talk about champagne. And I know that everybody loves champagne, it tastes amazing, but today we're gonna get into how champagne, it's more than just a bubbly wine. You can't just call any bubbly wine champagne. If you want actual champagne, it's extremely expensive. And so today we're gonna talk about how champagne is made and how there are a lot of really amazing wines that aren't champagne, but are made in the exact same way, and they're gonna cost like $60 less. So yeah, that's what today is all about. So we'll start off by explaining why not all bubbly wine is actually champagne. So if you want champagne, an actual champagne, it has to be from, there's this place called Champagne, and it's this area within northeast France, and here's a map of it. And it's in northeast France, not too far away from Paris, and it's just Champagne is at this perfect latitude and position on Earth that it just creates this beautiful wine. It's this cool climate area, and the soil is really chalky, which just gives it this beautiful minerality to it. And so that's why, so if a winemaker wants to make wine and actually make champagne, it costs them so much money to own any sort of property, whether it's a champagne house or a vineyard in Champagne. It costs them so much money, which is why if you get actual champagne, it's probably gonna cost you a good amount, probably more than $50 just for one bottle of champagne. So yeah, you can't just call any bubbly wine champagne. And there's only 320 villages in Champagne that can actually go ahead and call their wine champagne. But it is a beautiful wine, but obviously we can't be buying champagne every single day. So we're gonna talk about some better alternatives to champagne that are made in the exact same way. So the way that wine growers, their method of making champagne is called the traditional method, which is the most highly respected way of making a bubbly wine. And the way that traditional method works is that there's usually 3 grapes that are involved in it. It's Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, and Chardonnay. And so 2 of those grapes are actually red grapes, but it makes this beautiful white wine. And the way they do it is they take those 3 grapes and they gently press the juice out of the grapes, and they press it out so gently that it doesn't even extract any of that red color, so it just produces this beautiful creamy goldeny yellow color. And so they let all those juices from those 3 grapes ferment in a tank, and then they take that juice out of the tank. They put it in bottles, so they bottle each individual bottle, and then they do a second fermentation in the bottle. And this second fermentation is what makes it traditional method, and what gives it a beautiful flavor. They in this second fermentation in the bottle, they throw in some yeast, and they throw in some sugar, and that's where it actually gets bubbly. And then they bottle that with the yeast and the sugar sediment in it, and then that ferments for anywhere from, I think in Champagne, it has to be called champagne, it has to be fermenting in the bottle for at least 15 months, and then even up to 3 years, 3 or more years sometimes. A lot of people say that the longer the second fermentation is going on, the more beautiful and rich the flavor is. And it's that second fermentation which gives it that beautiful, rich, yeasty, champagne flavor, and the bubbles are just absolutely insane. And so that's what traditional method is, and a lot of wine growers in the world have been catching on to this and have been making their bubbly wine in the same way. So champagne is ridiculously expensive though. If you want a mass-produced champagne that cranks out so many bottles, which is just okay, you're probably gonna pay at least $45 for just a mass-produced champagne. If you want to buy from a legit champagne house that actually makes things in small batches, and they're more involved in the process, probably gonna pay at least $60 for that. But then from there, the price of champagne just skyrockets. It can be hundreds upon hundreds of dollars. At the shop that I used to work at, we had this champagne that Jay-Z actually produced, and that was, I think, at least 200, potentially more. And it just gets ridiculous. And there's some really great alternatives to buying actual champagne that taste really similarly and are made the exact same way. So in this next part of the episode, we're actually going to go ahead and try 3 different wines, 2 of which are made in the same exact way as champagne, and so that's going to be really fun. Okay, so our first example of an alternative to champagne that doesn't cost as much is a Cremant. And so Cremant is from France. This is the French way of making champagne, although yeah, champagne's in France, but you know, a lot of people can't go ahead and just buy land in Champagne. So Cremant is made in the same way as champagne in traditional method, but it's just a more accessible way of winemakers producing great bubbly wine. So this is the Chanceny Cremant de Loire, and so it's from the Loire Valley over in France, and that's a little bit like closer to the ocean. And it's made the same way in a champagne traditional method, but this guy is $16, and it's a really good bottle of wine. They make it in the exact same way, but the grapes are different. That's the only difference. This producer uses 3 grapes that are a little bit more indigenous and specific to the Loire Valley. So I do kind of appreciate that they're not just trying to replicate champagne. They're gonna make something really wonderful and specific to the Loire Valley. So the 3 grapes in this guy are Chenin Blanc, Chardonnay, and Cabernet Franc, which are 3 grapes that totally just thrive in the Loire Valley. And it's like I said, only like $16. It's like really, really solid. So let's go ahead and try it. Also, if you want to drink bubbly wine, champagne stoppers are very handy. They'll keep a good bottle of wine as bubbly as it always was for about maybe like three days. You can have it open for like 3 days and it'll still be just as bubbly and great. It smells a little bit more like more high tone than the average champagne does, so I think that's what, you know, that comes from the Chenin that's in the wine. Chenin Blanc's a little bit more acidic and high tone than some other grapes. Oh, it's so good. The bubbles they're just as amazing. You can totally tell that they definitely, you know, do that second fermentation in the bottle. This producer does it for about a year. They have that second fermentation going for about a year in the bottle, and the bubbles are amazing. They fill up your mouth and they linger, and they're just as great as if you know, you were drinking a bottle of champagne. So another great alternative to champagne is it's Cava, and Cava is the Spanish way of making champagne. So if you see Cava on a bottle, it's going to be from the country of Spain. Spain makes a really great alternative to champagne, and Cava's made the same way in traditional method, but it's a lot less expensive to you know, have land in Spain than it is in Champagne, so it just costs less. This is the Segura Viudas Cava. It's a Brut Rosé, which means it's gonna be a really dry rosé bubbly wine, and it's only $10. It's a really, really, really good deal. 95% of Cava in Spain is actually made in Catalonia, and Segura Viudas is made in Catalonia as well, and it's so good. Yeah, it's like a really, really, really good deal. Cava is usually pretty inexpensive, even less expensive than Cremant. And rosé bubbly wine is becoming more and more popular, so you're gonna see a lot of this out there. And I've seen Segura Viudas everywhere, so you can definitely get a bottle pretty easily. And like, yeah, one funny thing about Cava is that the #1 consumer of Cava in the world are actually the French. It's not even the Spanish, it's the French, because like the French don't want to pay champagne prices either. So there's definitely something to Cava. Oh, it smells so good. It smells like, it's like almost a red wine. Like it's like deep and rich and just really, really great. Oh, and I love that so much. Might be one of my favorite wines I've had recently. So good. Okay, and just for fun, we're gonna try this Lambrusco. I just wanted to pull it out because it's an episode all about bubbles, and this like blew my mind when I was first learning about wine. You can actually have bubbly red wine. So let me like pour this out for you right now so you can see this. When I first started learning about wine, I had no idea that you could have like bubbly red wine, but there's this thing out there called Lambrusco. And it's made in Italy. This has nothing to do with champagne. I just thought it was so cool. So it's made in Italy, and it's this bubbly red wine. It's made in this place called Emilia Romagna. and it's called Lambrusco, and it's so good. It tastes amazing with food. It's like the best with food. And like over here in Texas right now, it's so hot. And so if you want like a red wine with dinner and it's just really hot, this is a good alternative because you can chill it, put it in the fridge, put it in the freezer. It's refreshing. This guy, the Lambrusco La Nesta. It's only like, I think it's like $12. It's so good. So I just wanted to throw that fun fact out there for you. And also drink it because it's so good. Oh, it's amazing. And it's such a good crowd pleaser too. You can bring it to any dinner party and people are gonna just absolutely love it. It's good for white wine drinkers, good for red wine drinkers, good for everybody. I just wanted to throw that one in there because I love this bottle of wine so much. And that's it for today. I hope you learned a little bit about bubbles and how, you know, now you can go to someone's house and they can say, oh, I want to drink champagne. And you can be like, oh, but is it actually from Champagne? And you can drop some knowledge on them. And then you can just, you know, learn more about bubbles and enjoy good bubbles and just have fun with bubbles.